The Ethereum ETF has been approved and the markets are starting to wake up strongly. The urge of getting into altcoins has become stronger as the potential returns in altcoins have significantly increased. I've gone all in into altcoins a few weeks ago, and in this video I'll explain why most altcoins haven't been doing much at all, and I'll answer the question, when is Altseason starting? Altcoins do run in certain cycles which used to be referred to as an Altseason, but it's just a matter of confidence and positive sentiment. First part of the cycle, Bitcoin starts to move and is actually moving. After that, the rotation starts to happen to Ethereum, and after that the remainder of the markets wake up, which is comparable to the altcoin cycles that we know, and it's all coming down to having confidence in the markets. The past 3 months there was no confidence in the markets at all, as the expectations were that the Ethereum ETF would have been declined, through which the Bitcoin dominance has rallied and it has hit a cycle high at 58%, providing a massive crash on altcoins in April. During these periods, altcoins were sold off as people were anticipating a higher return to be made in Bitcoin after the spot ETF was approved. Some altcoins even had a correction of more than 60%. Due to the fact that altcoins have been suffering, there's no confidence in the altcoins, and that translates to the rest of the markets. This particular psychology goes hand in hand with the interest from retail in the markets. At this point it's close to zero, as the volumes in Q1 have decreased substantially compared to the Q4 volumes of 2021. The volumes for retail are still down 70% compared to 2021, while the institutional volume has increased with 50%. Retail confidence is usually coming back when the altcoins start to move, and altcoins start to move when Ethereum starts to move, and that's currently the case as the Ethereum ETF has been approved. Earlier this week that was taking place. Additionally, the House has voted positively on crypto regulation through the FIT21 bill, which had bipartisan support. Donald Trump accepts crypto for its presidential race, and all of a sudden a U-turn has been made on the adoption of crypto, as Ethereum might become a commodity rather than a security. This leads to the ultimate question, when is Altseason starting? Sorry for taking a slight moment, but I'd like to make an agreement with you. If you subscribe to this YouTube channel, I'll make sure that I'll continue to increase the quality of the video and the content as much as I can. And I can share that there are some very cool things still coming up. This is number 8 of Finance Forward for you today, but there will be more exciting additions coming up, new production, interviews, fresh content, revamped studio, and everything in the coming quarters. It will be here supporting our journey to get us through the crypto cycles and make sure that we reach financial freedom. The Ethereum ETF has been approved, and on the 23rd of May it has been a legendary day, as it's signaling a lot of potential momentum for the crypto markets, and there's a lot of potential upside. In a matter of 3 days, a complete U-turn has been taking place for everything in the US and the government in the US, and I just want to discuss everything that has been taking place and cover a few questions from your side as well, which is, why is Ethereum not moving after the approval at all? So let's just go through all the different chapters of the past week to see where we stand. And the first thing was the message from Eric Belkunas and the two Bloomberg watchers, or the ETF watchers and analysts, that all of a sudden said that they increased the odds of a spot Ether ETF approval to 75%, up from 25%, as they heard chatter this afternoon that the SEC could be doing a 180 on this increasingly political issue. So now everyone's scrambling, including the fact that this tweet came out, which was from Nate Garrissey, which is the SEC decision deadline this week is on the spot ETH ETFs. The SEC must approve both the 19B4S, which is the exchange rule changes, and the S1s, which is the registration statements for ETFs to launch. Technically possible for the SEC to approve the first ones and then slow play the S1s, especially given reported lack of engagement here. So that is something that we will revert to at some point, and the 19B4s as well. But this is what started on May the 20th, in which later that day also Eric mentioned that the exchanges were asked to update the 19B4 filings on an accelerated basis by the US Securities and Exchange Commission. 3 people familiar with the situation told CoinDesk, suggesting they may be moving to approve these applications ahead of a key deadline this Thursday, and the deadline on Thursday was one of the applications that had to be approved, delayed or denied. And you need to remember, they delayed the one of Invesco earlier this month with 60 days, which technically signaled that there wasn't a denial across, but actually there was a potential approval going to come. Then on May the 21st, all of a sudden, the presidential campaign of Donald Trump started to wake up, and they accept Bitcoin and also other cryptos. This might be in light of what happened the other day, where a student was asked about crypto and where Donald Trump said we need to embrace crypto and shouldn't be fighting it, but we need to make sure that we get a framework. So this technically accepts crypto as a whole. It also stated, demonstrating President Trump's success as a champion of American freedom and innovation, we proudly offer you a chance to contribute to the campaign with cryptocurrency. Saving our nation from Biden's failures requires your support. As Biden piles regulations and red tape on all of us, President Trump stands ready to embrace new technologies that will make America great again. So this came out, which is from the Republicans, and all of a sudden everything starts to change within the Democrats and also within the government as a whole, because we had the actual case earlier of a rejection of the Ether ETF, and also the possibility that Biden was going to veto the stance on the FIT21 bill, which was going to take place at a later point during the week. So this took place, and then the next few things started to happen, of which the first one was that particular FIT21 bill, which is the FIT21 bill is comparable to MiCAR in Europe. It's a start of a regulatory framework for adoption of crypto. And if this was going to be rejected, technically you would say, okay, crypto is going to be banned in the US, which if it gets a vote, instead of having the same as what it is right now, which having a complete ban, like almost, only Coinbase is acceptable over there and a few other exchanges. But by approving this bill, it's actually saying, hey, we want to continue provide a solid framework where crypto can actually become larger. So this voting took place on May the 23rd, well actually May the 22nd, which was won by 278 to 136, in which this is actually the biggest day of the week, because this entails what I mentioned, the fact that we can get a regulatory framework in which we are designed to continue building. So this is super positive. Then the next day we had another bill which prevents the Fed from creating a central bank digital currency, which is a huge accomplishment. They are even forced to use a public network or a public blockchain instead if they want to adopt and create a stable coin. Technically you would say we got them already, USDC, USDT. Not sure whether they're going to be using it. Probably more likely that it will be USDC instead of USDT. But anyway, this is also very positive, and it's going super fast one after another, which ultimately ended up by the exact same day, a little bit later, which is the approval. The document here says, self-regulatory organizations, NISE, ARCA, the Nasdaq stock market, CBOE exchange order granting accelerated approval of proposed rule changes as modified by amendments thereto to list and trade shares of Ether-based exchange-traded products. So the 19b4 files, the rule changes, as you can see here, the rule changes, those were approved. And that is a positive signal for everything within the crypto ecosystem, because technically this means that there is a potential likelihood that we can classify Ether as a potential commodity instead of a security. Now, a few questions arise in the first place, all right? So I want to show those. First of all, the first question that has been arising is the fact that we are having a case of Ethereum pretty much breaking out substantially, taking all the liquidity, but ultimately we had this big breakout to the upside because the chances of an approval has reversed from 25% to 75%. Now, we got the approval and the markets are doing nothing, which technically means that the markets are just pricing in the actual event already. So we had a case of a downwards fall based on the fact that the markets were pricing in a rejection. This move basically entails a reversal or an approval, and the approval isn't everything because we have two documents, the 19b4 files and we've got the S1 files. The S1 is technically required to get the listing going, and that could take months. So we can still be waiting for perhaps even 2 to 3 months before it can actually start trading. The two Bloomberg analysts both said that it might be taking approximately 2 to 3 weeks, but it could be taking a few months. And if you go back to the tweet that we have here, is that there might be a case that they slow play the S1s. So the approval is great. It's signaling that there is a potential case of Ethereum being a commodity. Also the other things that have been taking place with the votes of FIT 21 and the bill against the Fed creating a CBDC, that's positive, but the price action is just standard. And if we go towards the BDC ETF approval, we can see that the ETF approval took place, markets started to correct, and after a while, when the listing actually started to happen, that's when we saw the big influx. So the real impact of this ETF and the real impact in the markets for providing an alt season isn't priced into the current event. It's going to come from the liquidity that's going to be provided by the listing in a few weeks or in a few months' time. So the approval is a great light. It's a strong bet to have Ethereum in your portfolio at this point. I'm more than confident of having the actual position of being into altcoins at this stage, but it doesn't suggest that if the approval takes place, we need to start running instantly. We can easily just have a consolidation and then we start running, through which this is just a period of delay taking place. And there's also another question, which is, are we going to see other ETFs being approved as well, or other coins that are going to get an ETF? The next question is, which next altcoin or basket is going to get an ETF as well? So that is going to be approached, because if Ethereum is going to be classified as a commodity, the chances are significant that another altcoin is going to get it as well. So earlier in this week, we had a very interesting conversation taking place on CNBC, in which a discussion took place which altcoin is going to be next, whether it's going to be Solana that's going to be getting the next ETF. So let's take a look at what they have been saying.
The SEC is starting to amend these S1s. So I don't know if the Ethereum ETF gets approved today, next week or the week after. It will get approved at some point in time. But also the trade now is who's next, right?
Exactly. Who is next? Because and I was talking about yesterday. Now it's almost time for truly my ETF, my blended ETF, of which which crypto asset it is. And so who is next, though?
I mean, I think you've got to think about Solana as probably the next one, right? I mean, Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Solana are probably the big three for this cycle. But I'll give you even a stranger, or maybe not stranger, but maybe an unintuitive way to think about it, Robinhood and Coinbase. Because now we have some clarity about what a security is and what isn't. And they'll be able to list a lot more crypto, which means a lot more trading for them. So I think they're the biggest beneficiaries from the change that's gone on.
So BK, really glad to have you here. Big fan of your work.
The SEC is starting to amend these.
So they started to discuss that instead of having an, well, actually just to have a Solana ETF taking place. And to be fair, I believe that the actual chances of having a Solana ETF are quite slim. In such a way that if you have a classification of Ethereum as a commodity, the chances of a Solana ETF have technically increased. However, Solana has the fact of VC investing and all the seed rounds, etc. I'm not saying it's an actual reason of not getting one, but if we go down the list, then we might even suggest that if XRP wins the case, which is almost 99% sure at this point, but if XRP wins that actual case, it makes more sense to get either an XRP or a Litecoin ETF instead of Solana. I'm not saying it's going to happen at some point or at all, any moment at all. I think Solana is going to get one, significantly one, but I'm not sure whether it's going to be the next one. Also, something interesting to take place in the markets is that Solana is getting sold off. So the opportunity cost is significant, right? We've got a chart here of Solana against Ethereum. Of course, this is the period where Solana did do really well and people rotated from Ethereum towards Solana. Now people start to rotate from Solana towards ETH. This is the approval date, or actually a few days before the moment that Bitcoin or Ethereum started to break out. And this is the current loss or the drop that we see in Solana. Probably this is going to continue, in which the opportunity cost is there of having Solana instead of Ethereum, which was the exact same in the previous months or maybe even years of having Ethereum instead of Solana. So I think that the rotation is taking place at this point, which you can also see on Solana against Bitcoin, which technically starts to look a little bit worse than what it has been in previous periods, in which I would suggest that this is going to continue to go down for a little bit. And then the question is, which altcoin is next? I think it's going to be either Litecoin or XRP. And if that is going to be taking place, I think that there are also big chances that instead of specific altcoins, I think you're going to get baskets of altcoins. So let's say you get a basket of layer ones in which you get Ethereum, Solana, Avalanche, etc. If there is a conclusion that these specific altcoins are all commodities and not securities. We are not there yet, which means that we are getting an Ethereum ETF doesn't say green light for everything, but it says green light for a lot of things. And that is why I suggest that I'll be going for an allocation or a specific investment into the Ethereum ecosystem, because if the Ethereum ecosystem is going to get the approval through the Ethereum ETF and Ethereum is going to be a commodity rather than a security, that automatically means that everything in the Ether ecosystem is going to do really well. And that is when you want to invest in something, because that is confidence, and betting on something that there's no information out there yet is not the best time to do it. If Solana is going to correct all the way down and at some point is going to be undervalued compared to something else, that is the moment when you want to invest into something. But at this point, I think it's going to be the Ether ecosystem and then some other altcoins out there. Our mission is to provide you all to achieve financial freedom and stability through crypto. When I started, I felt overwhelmed and I didn't have all the tools to make accurate decisions on my own investments. That's why we've launched a training course prior to the altcoin bull cycle to prepare you as much as possible. The training course provides you with all the insights from my 7 years of experience in the markets. I share my personal trading strategy. I explain everything surrounding altcoin investments, risk management, portfolio management, but also technical analysis on how you should be able to decide which altcoins to invest in, and more importantly, when you should be selling those. Click on the link in the description below to see what the course consists of, and make sure to reach us through our email if you have any questions on the topics or the content. Altseason happens when the confidence is back in the markets, and that happens when Ethereum starts to move. It's cliche, but that's how things are moving around in these markets. This automatically means that we're close to a big alt season because regulations are kicking in and the approval of the Ethereum ETF is just a sign which also says that Ethereum has likely bottomed out. The classification of Ethereum as a commodity rather than a security entails the fact that a lot of cryptocurrencies are likely going to be doing really well, as in June 2023 a very big group of cryptocurrencies were classified as a security. Most of them might not be a security at all, through which the confidence of purchasing them is likely going to be stronger. Let's discuss the entire cycle and everything that's consisting of strength in the altcoins. The altcoin cycle takes place in several ways. So the path to an altcoin season is you need to see confidence in the coin or in the blockchain that every altcoin is built on top of. So Solana has been doing really well because people were actually estimating that Solana is going to be the Ethereum killer, while Solana might be an additional layer 1, but I don't believe it's going to be the Ethereum killer. But because Solana did so well, all the meme coins on Solana did it, Render did well, Nozana did well, more altcoins in the Solana ecosystem started to do well because Solana did do well, so people rotate their profits from Solana into the rest of the ecosystem. That's why we got that small Solana meme coin season technically. And that came down from confidence. So there is a money flow taking place, and I've got it on the screen here, which is the old Altseason cycle, and it's still the same, but it's just getting a little bit more advanced. First phase, you've got the bear market, accumulation year, then Bitcoin starts to wake up, so liquidity is getting pushed into Bitcoin and strength is seen in Bitcoin overall. Then there's a phase overlap in which money rotates from Bitcoin to Ethereum, which technically means we consolidate when it comes to the price of Bitcoin. Strength starts to be seen when it comes to ETH against Bitcoin. Now that's the period where we are currently in. So you see Ethereum wake up against Bitcoin, and because it's doing that, it shows that there is some additional confirmation that strength is going to be seen there. So phase 1 Bitcoin, phase 2 Ethereum, and then everything in the Ethereum ecosystem starts to wake up again. Now usually this goes hand in hand with the fact that there is the halving coming up. So prior to the halving, Bitcoin runs, based on the fact that prior to the halving, Bitcoin starts to run, a little bit later Ethereum starts to run, a little bit later large cap starts to run, and then the last phase is when meme coins start to do well. This is still happening, and it's still the same as in every cycle at this point. So I wanted to show this chart of ETH against Bitcoin, which shows when the bottom is in for the altcoins and when it starts to show strength. So what we see here is the fact that we had this big run prior to the halving of Bitcoin. The halving took place in 2016 in June, and we had a run already. Now we had a pretty substantial crash and then another big push, which usually happens in the second bull year. Here we had the exact same. First run up prior to the halving, another run up, consolidation, and then a big push to the upside. So technically from some period before the halving, you actually get to bottom 6 months prior, and then we start the reverse. It was trying to get it again. So we had this wick here in January, which technically meant the actual start of the alt season, right? However, this week here was also the week where the Bitcoin ETF was approved, and also got listed a little bit later. So the ETF got approved and listed, and this season where Bitcoin runs first, then altcoins start to follow, then you get a global correction, and then another run takes place and everything goes in tandem, was a little bit different. So in this case, we had a bear market for 812 days. In this case, we've got a little bit longer bear market because this downwards fall was orchestrated by Bitcoin spot ETF not doing great for the altcoins. So we were seeing the exact same, but it got crushed by Bitcoin as Bitcoin rallied to 75k which is different than the previous cycles because we went higher. We went to a new all-time high, and now we see the exact same thing taking place where Ethereum tried to break to the upside, couldn't continue, fell down, and now based on this fact we have a massive bullish divergence taking place, and technically we have bottomed out. So finally, just around 6 to 8 months later, we are having that reversal taking place at this point. So we finally are getting into a period where we can start seeing the strength on the altcoins, and we can start seeing the momentum getting back into the altcoins at this point. Which brings me to the fact that if you go back into the time, then you can also see that we had the actual listing of the Bitcoin halving taking place, or the Bitcoin spot ETF taking place at the exact peak of the altcoins in January. So this is an example of Arbitrum, which also had a big inflationary supply increase, but we had this big run. Also started around 6 months prior to the halving. This is December, so we started to break out, and then it got crushed by the fact that the spot ETF takes place, which meant that altcoins were sold off to Bitcoin because investors were looking for a higher ROI in altcoins, in Bitcoin, instead of being into altcoins. And that point was taking place on and on and on in the past 4 months since the listing of the Bitcoin ETF and also the halving taking place. Now that momentum is fading away while the ETF approval for Ethereum starts to increase, including the fact that Ethereum is a commodity, which means that the valuation of Bitcoin is here and the valuation of altcoins is here, and it's going to quickly get back towards equilibrium and probably gets into a state where altcoins are going to be overvalued at some point, which is going to take place in like 6 to 12 months from here. Which technically means that this is the reason why altcoins have been sold off. So Arbitrum has been sold off by approximately 75% if you go to the wick, in which many other altcoins have seen the exact same. Here you can see that the actual listing of the actual approval took place here. First breakout happened, and from there we had another correction of 70% on optimism as well. And you can just go down the list. So the Bitcoin ETF approval has been crushing the regular cycle, which means that we need to make sure that this cycle can be different than the previous ones, and we need to make sure that the valuations of altcoins at this point are ultimately super undervalued compared to what Bitcoin is, and there is a lot of upside to be gained. When is actually Altseason happening? Well, Altseason is happening when retail comes back into the markets, and that's when Ethereum is doing well, as that means that the rotation happens from Bitcoin towards Ethereum, and Ethereum is actually the accelerator of almost everything in the markets. In the current cycle, it's not only a rotation from Bitcoin to Ethereum, but it's also a rotation from Solana to Ethereum, as Solana was classified as the potential Ethereum killer. You can see that Solana has been losing value against Ethereum, which automatically translates to the fact that people are jumping back from Solana to Ethereum, a comparable mechanism that also happens from Bitcoin to ETH, as investors are seeking the most optimal spot of return. If Ethereum starts to do really well, this automatically means that Altseason is already starting at this point. The question is, are you too late or are you still early in your investments in altcoins? I think the latter. I'm referring to the valuation of altcoins against Bitcoin. They are barely up anything or haven't moved at all, which means that there's still a lot of upside to be made compared to what they have been doing in the past 3 to 4 months. I hope you have been enjoying this video and I've been providing content for you on your journey towards financial stability and freedom. If you did enjoy the video, can I ask you a favor and comment beneath on your thoughts on this current edition and what you would like to see. All your feedback is very helpful building and continuing the level of content that we aim to provide. Also, if you're looking to be part of our journey and our team, make sure to check out our career page in the description beneath because we are still looking for additional team members. Thank you, and I'll see you on the next video next week, in which we're going to discuss way more on altcoins, Bitcoin, and crypto.